I'm out to alter the conversation about mental illness on a global scale. One of the things that I've been working with recently is the notion that mental illness and, in fact, mental health are just conversations. One of the things that I'm noticing that can be really helpful for people is to get that humanity comes with a whole array of experiences, all the way from being in deep misery to being in complete ecstasy. And once you get that going on for yourself, you can start seeing that the disease model may not fit or may not have to fit as a way of looking at mental distress. What I plan to do is not use medication and not use diagnosis, and again, assist people to learn a new way of looking at this condition and look at a new way of looking at their symptoms such that they can feel empowered moving forward. There is the possibility of creating a way of being almost immediately that is different than what you have now, a transformation per se, a way of looking at one's own experience as not being mentally ill, but being part of humanity such that one can leave a conversation in a way that they had never ever seen themselves as being able to be before. I can't think of a single psychiatric complaint to which the response, "Welcome to humanity," isn't appropriate. My purpose is to alter the conversation about mental illness on a global scale. The biggest threat in the world today, well, it's not what you think. It's not a virus. It's not climate change. It's not racism. It's not even war. Now, to be truthful, of course, those things are just calamitous and monumental threats to all of humanity and our planet. And I don't mean to decrease any of the power of each of those, the grips that they're having on our entire human race. But the greatest threat in the world is even bigger than that. And the greatest threat in the world is that we are giving up, collectively, speaking our true voice. Why is that a greater threat? Because all the things I just said, all those incredible threats to humanity are going to require authentic conversations to get on the other side of. And if we're no longer able or no longer willing to actually have those authentic conversations, well, I don't know about you, but the future is at least questionable, if not really terribly bleak.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Arash's World. Today, we have a very special guest, Dr. Fred Moss. Welcome here.
Yeah, thank you. It's great to be here. Thanks for having me on.
For sure. And I do this to every guest, and it's the toughest question. And after that, it's going to be easier, I promise. But how would you briefly describe yourself here to our audience?
Yeah, I think the best way to describe myself is a recovering, retiring psychiatrist. I'm somebody who's been in mental health for a little over 40 years and really had an opportunity to see it from multiple different directions. And what I've really learned is that the conventional method that we use in psychiatry might not be the best method to create health. And so I'm often called the Undoctor as well, where I undiagnose, unmedicate, and then undoctrinate people, walking them out of the conventional system and towards a health optimization where they can actually heal.
I love that, and I completely agree with that. And I think that's wonderful because a lot of again psychiatrists would be connected with the medical model and so on. And although it does help, but I don't think it gets to the root of the problem. And I think it's really like we need to transform mental health and the way we see it. And bravo! I mean, I love what you're doing. And your book is you have a podcast as well, which is awesome. Welcome to Humanity, which again something that I completely agree with. We need more humanity. We can see it in the world right now. But also, your book is Creative Aid: Healing Through Creativity and Self-Expression, and bringing in healing and tying it with creativity. I just love that. So, what would you briefly say about that?
Well, number one and two is I have a newer podcast as well called Healing the Healer, or it's called The Healthy Healer. Sorry, it's called The Healthy Healer. And I've run there's about 8 or 10 episodes there, and I'm interviewing people each week. I interview 2 people a week. So it's very exciting. It's a super cool program. And
We're really looking at healthy healers, people like yourself who have gone through a ride and really found them a new sense of what it means to be healed. What it means to be healed as a healer is allowing for resonating with another person, actually connecting with another person on a harmonic level, because it is from there that actual health emanates. So that's the name of that one podcast. And I have a second book as well, which is the book is called Find Your True Voice. Although we can speak about the Creative Eight. The Creative Eight, Healing Through Creativity and Self-Expression, is a book that is focused on taking our sense of imbalance, our sense of what we call symptomology or discomfort with life, and finding other ways to manage it that don't have to do with ingesting certain pills or even going to therapy. Like, it turns out that creativity is what's here to be had. And if we use some of our basic visual and performing arts, for instance, art, music, dancing, singing, drama, cooking, writing, gardening, if we use those skill sets, we will find that as we're doing those things, all our so-called symptomologies tend to disappear entirely, and our whole diagnosis disappears while we're in the act of doing those things. So I encourage people to find that creativity by, just doing it maybe even a minute or two a day, enough to activate your creativity, which is we all have, even if you think you're not a good artist or a good dancer, and stepping in and really utilizing that creativity as a source, as a primary source for healing.
Yeah, I know I'm not a good dancer, but again, we all have something, and writing for me is very important, and that's it. I mean, we know as creative artists, we know that when we're doing it, we feel happy, we feel content, we feel excited, and that is I've always seen as a form of therapy. And so it's an easier way of therapy because it's again you with yourself interacting with your work or your painting or your body and your movement. And I think we haven't really explored that. I had a creativity coach here on my podcast, Eric Meisel, and I was also interested in how he saw that too. And his way of thinking was also thinking outside of the box because that's what creative people do. And I think that's hugely important instead of just following certain strict guidelines or, again, this medication will work for you and so on. But we're also unique and everyone needs something unique to make them work. And also everyone, I like self-expression because that's really important. I don't think we express ourselves enough.
Yeah,
in a unique way, in a helpful way. Yeah,
that's very true. A lot of people are barking out noise and they put it on social media or something. That's not what we're talking about when self-expression. Self-expression comes from the core. It comes from the center area. It comes from your honest to goodness, authentic core self. And what we're talking about here in the form of self-expression is, in fact, like self-expression through art and music and dancing and singing and drama, etc. So when we self-express, you could make a case that so much of what is eventually called mental illness is really blockages in self-expression and listening. Like what's really happening is I find out that when I actually meet people who think that they're mentally ill, if I can connect with them and actually understand them, actually create a resonating harmonic relationship in our interplay with each other, there tends to be healing instantaneously at that point. What people really want more than anything is to be heard and seen for who they really are.
Yes, absolutely. And I think this is the problem, Don. Here's the rub I find. People, we know we want to be ourselves. They always say be yourself, but we're not really taught how to do it. We're not really like supported to do it. And I think that the creative arts would be that because we're concerned about AI. And it's like AI is going to make music and write poems and so on. But I'm not concerned about that because no AI can replace somebody like Mozart because they're their unique way of putting the notes together. And that is what, again, distinguishes us from anything. And for me, I think one of the main meaning of life, if you like, would be really finding yourself, who you truly are. And we are unique in our DNA. We're also unique in our way of thinking, in our psychology and so on. But we are not given the tools. And again, I love what you're doing because that's exactly what we need. We need people to put us on our own path instead of following other people's paths and not exploring these sides of ourselves.
Yeah, that's really great. Really well said. And one of the things that you're really pointing to, this idea of we're not given the tools.
Mm-hmm.
What's really interesting is we don't have to discover ourselves. We're
Mm.
already here.
That's true.
We're
Yeah.
here underneath it all. And all
Yeah.
we really have to do is rediscover ourselves. We
Okay.
need to move the muck and the rust and the cobwebs out of the way and get to the core things that have been here since you were born.
Yeah.
Like what really matters to you, that person that you know, that 3-year-old that you know you were, that you remember being. There's no cells from that 3-year-old that are still left on you. 100% of your cells have turned over, but you still have a memory of what it was to be 3 years old. And that 3-year-old knew what was important to them. And that's the same person we're talking about here. So it isn't a matter of not necessarily having the skills. It's a matter of going through time and throwing mud and dirt on top of what we really were, and then choosing to become people that we're not.
Yes.
In order to somehow protect the people that we are. Yeah. And that is just a ludicrous, absurd, preposterous way to go through life. Yet we humans have done that. And we, you know, the crack in the cement has got larger and larger over the years. And no, we've never stopped to repair it. So there's a greater distance between who we really are and who we then show up as. And when there's a big distance between that, who we really are and what we show up as, that might be another source of what often gets called mental illness or mental dysfunction.
Yeah, I completely agree. But for me, the tool that really helped me to set me on this path was psychoanalysis. And in a way, just like kind of going through it through myself, I discovered what I'm not. So it's a negative way of approaching it. So just peeling off those layers of of the onion, and then you get to the core. And I think we are often confused. We're living on a superficial way of thinking, and I think that needs to change. So something beautiful and fascinating in psychoanalysis really like you delve into that, and you say, well, who am I at my core? And that's, again, by realizing what I'm not. I'm not this. Yeah. I'm not what my parents thought I was. I'm not this, what my teachers used to think. And what, again, my loved one perhaps think of me. And then rediscover. I like that. Exactly. Rediscovering, connecting with that true self. But it's so, it seems so hard because there's a lot of noise. There's a lot of distractions. There's lots of false prophets, if you like, who are telling us follow this path, and people fall for cults and so on because they're missing that kind of connection with themselves and with others.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's not simple. You say that it's hard, and you know, no one ever said it's actually going to be easy. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But the pathway is clear, and it's really important to get. And I think I trust this with each and every human. When you're not being yourself, there's a part of you that knows it.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, we've reached a day and age of the age where people are actually saying things that even they don't believe.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they're saying it as if they're them. They're actually, it's not even a lie anymore. It's like beyond a lie. They're actually saying things out loud that even they don't believe. And then they're propagating that as if that's their personality. It's reached a point where it's going to take something to actually back up out of that and start speaking what is then one's truest voice, something that comes from the core. Normally, people would say that the reason they don't speak their true voice is because they're afraid. Yeah. They're afraid of disrupting or being misunderstood or distracting or maybe being thrown off the island, actually dismissed. Yeah. And, you know, what's really here to get is that if you set that fear aside, if you're able to actually get that, setting the fear aside, or in fact even incorporating the fear, it doesn't help to act like you're someone else. Either way, you're going to get tossed off the island. Either way, you're going to be disrupted.
Yes, exactly.
Either way, you're going to be distracted. So it's way easier, as it turns out, to be yourself and get tossed off the island than to pretend to be someone else and get tossed off the island.
Much less stressful, because if you're pretending to be someone else, you have to keep in line with that. Well, this is who I said I was with this person. I think that's a tremendous amount of stress. And ever since I've learned to like really open up and say, you know what, it doesn't really affect me what you think of me. I want you to like me, But if I'm not myself, then you won't like me anyhow. So because you're liking something else that I've created, and that's not me. So again, it's that kind of like mirror within a mirror. And I think one of the driving forces, or one of the issues is this, I think, and that's an issue, that's a problem. We're individuals, but we're also living in society, and finding that kind of compromise of being ourselves as much as we can without disrupting or hurting others in our society, and kind of that balance. So what would you say? Because I think we're going too much towards the conformist side. People are just like want to be accepted, and they follow, and they say, like you're saying, they're saying things that they don't believe, but I think they're aware of it. They just want to please others. They want to be accepted by them, and that's the issue. Where how can we find that balance? Functioning in society, not getting kicked out, but also being ourselves as much as possible.
Yeah, you bring up some great points here. People are just terrified of being dismissed and disrupted and thrown off the island. People are so terrified of being tossed out of their group or tossed out of their tribe. And so they are finding themselves, due to this fear, actually, actually saying things that they don't believe, actually being people that they really are not. And what you can do is take incremental steps. And if you start with the intimate group in your central circle, you can take incremental steps with that group and say things that are a little bit more truthful today than what you said yesterday. And then you'll see it's actually addicting. It's very compelling when you start speaking your truest self, because like you said, you don't have to remember what you said. You actually are just speaking from your core. You're actually just being yourself. And it goes a long ways towards creating genuine relationships. And it is from there, and maybe only from there, that healing actually takes place in humanity.
And it's really in the moment, because I like what you said earlier of the cells are changing. So who we were is not who we are right now, and who we will be. So we have to keep that in mind, that it's also fluid. And some people are so concerned about sticking to who they think they are that they cause extra stress because of that. That's also not the point.
It's also, you're right. And, we hold politicians to this idea, for instance, that what they said 20 years ago should be exactly what they said today. And the truth is, what I said last week isn't what I'm saying today. And, we should be allowed to shift, given the amount of information that is coming at us in so many different directions all day long. There's so many ways that we receive information. Our mind and our thoughts and our ideas about how things go have to be dynamic and allowed to be fluid and shifting, because if they're not, we're going to sort of stick to something the same, even long past it being stale.
And that takes courage too. And I think that's it, again, speaking up. And I also like it that it shouldn't be a big fuss or anything, just slowly, incrementally, gradually. But it's empowering. And I think empowerment is also misunderstood currently. I think that's really it. Empowering is really bringing out your voice the way it is, as much as you can, again, within that context of being also safe and not being too drastic. I think that's also important. But it is empowering. It feels liberating, because you say, now I don't have to act. I am myself. And we rarely are, because if you look at the job, and the jobs, you can't really be yourself. It's like, to an extent. But when it came for me between like being myself and like wanting them to be someone else, I chose myself, and it cost me the job. That's okay. I will move on, because it's just a job. But myself, my dignity, my honor, my relationship with myself is worth much more than that.
Exactly. Yeah. In the greater scheme of things, which you clearly have explored before, that is so obviously true. And not everybody gets that the way you just said it, but that is so obviously true, that the cost of being someone different than you are, or pretending to be someone different than you are in order to protect yourself, is very large. And finding your true voice and then speaking it. The key value of that, like the key thing there is, it comes with listening, like actually listening. So when you speak your true voice through whatever form of self-expression, in vocality or in any of the creative 8 or any of the creative methodologies that we have gone over, and I do go over more in my book, you can see that the key feature is actually to listen to who's around you. What is being called for to move that needle forward? Like, what is being asked for? Who the person you're with, what are they saying? What are they not saying?
Yes.
What are
Yes.
they representing? What do they want? What do they need? And maybe not just one person, but maybe the whole collective or the whole circumstance is calling for you to be a certain way. And self-expression is an intention to move that needle forward. It's not simply going to the mountaintops and screaming your truth out loud,
Yes.
like, I hate my mother-in-law or something. That's not very helpful.
No.
What can be very helpful is using creativity to then express yourself effectively to move the needle forward in whatever direction is being called for via your listening.
Yeah, active listening, and really like taking away those preconceived notions that we have, because we see a person, we already have various judgments about them. That's something that I've learned to do, of being less judging of others and just actively listening. What are they really trying to say? They're angry. Okay, they're upset about something. It's not about me. And that's usually our first thought is like, oh, they hate me. Like, no, they don't even know me in many cases. And even if they did, it wouldn't matter. Listening, what is coming out there? What are they trying to communicate? What is their frustration with? And we find that we have more things in common if we actually did that, instead of we blocked ourselves out. It's like, no, you're different, and so on. Just again, taking all that away and listening to that without our own ideas projected onto them. I think that is hugely important. And it's hard to do, but once you learn to do it, it's really fascinating, because you can relax and listen to the other person.
Yeah, it's funny. You cannot get in trouble actually listening to somebody.
Yeah. Yeah.
You only get in trouble when you speak and do. If all you're doing is listening, you will not get in trouble. There, you can actually just calm down, relax, and listen, even if what they're saying is diametrically opposed to what you think is so.
Yeah.
And these days, there are so many divisive issues out here where, you know, your siblings or your best friends or your colleagues or your mentors might think differently about something you think is really important. They might have a directly adversarial idea about how things are going in maybe one of the particular areas that you think matters. But the importance here is actually being able to interchange and be curious. And I had a conversation yesterday. I gave a keynote speech yesterday at in front of 60 people. And there was one lady at the end who told me that she does not have time to listen. She will not listen to certain people. And she just won't. She will not waste her time to listen to certain people. And she came up to me after the class and said to me, I will not listen to somebody who's mentally ill. I will not listen to somebody who, who has violent tendencies or something like that. And I said, well, maybe what they need more than anything is to be heard, is to be listened to. And you don't have to worry. You're not going to catch their disease by listening to them. Exactly. There's nothing frightening about simply listening. It's one of the safest places to be. And it is really, really fascinating and to feed your curiosity. Like, what does that person really mean, really want, really need when they're speaking?
Yeah, curiosity is hugely important there, and I am kind of driven by that. Even people who disagree or who have different points of views, I'm curious. I want to explore that world without falling into it, without being infected by it or anything like that. It's like, that's why you need to really find yourself, and I think because then you become more confident. And I think people are just concerned. If I am talking to someone who's mentally ill, I might catch their disease or I might catch the political views. But once you are confident in that, that helps. And for me, mindfulness has been important, of like realizing those kind of feelings within me and being able to deal with them. So, for example, when I have angry students sometimes who talk to me, and not catching their anger, not responding to them, but acting in a calm and centered way. And I found their anger dissipates, right? If I say, okay, well, this is the reason why you're failing, this is what happened, and so on, and I say it in a calm demeanor and manner, it's fine. And I've had that various times with people who are angry, and we see that very often nowadays, more than before. But when you respond in that way, they have nowhere else to go, and they're provoking you to an extent. But when you don't play the game, they're like, okay, well, let's just move on and bother somebody else. And that helps us ourselves too, because we don't get caught up in that.
Exactly. Yeah. So again, you're really underlining the power of listening, and really getting that the more you listen, the more you know what the next notes are for you to play. Almost like you're in a band and in an improvisation, making music with other people. You have to be able to listen to the other musicians so that you know when you're being called on to play and what's being called on to actually create with your instrument. And so
And
it all comes into listening.
like modern classical music is dissonant too, and acceptance dissonance, because that actually is melodious as well, and that adds to the whole thing. I love that. For your creative 8, what are some of the things that you are suggesting? What are the 8? Can we briefly go over them here for our audience as well?
Sure. The creative 8, the original creative 8 are art, music, dancing, singing, cooking, writing, gardening, and drama.
Cool.
And then there's 2 more that got added. Cooking and photography cleaning and photography got added. Okay. And cleaning the home or cleaning yourself, actually cleaning up is also a form of self-expression. Then photography got added. And then ultimately the final one is really being of service. Like the trump card is actually being with, doing anything, helping anybody do anything. Is a beautiful form of self-expression and service as well, and moves ourselves out of it. And then ultimately, again, another form that we've looked at in our mastermind is divinity, eternity, and infinity, looking way out there for what's on the other side of what we think the finite life is about. And that's another space where we can, when we explore that, we can really dissipate or even disappear our mental health concerns.
And I'd be curious also in terms of spirituality, what would you say, and what is your point here as well? It's something that I think a lot of people who talk about spirituality too, and I've seen with friends and so on, I don't find them very spiritual. So, which is kind of like, kind of confusing there. But what would you look at? And you mentioned divinity as something I'm very fascinated with too.
Right. So, divinity, eternity, infinity, we start looking at the greater whole. Like, what is this life that we're living? Are we just, what do they say? It's like, I'm living a human experience, I'm missing a word here. I'm sorry. That I'm just not, I don't think it's a spirituality. I'm just tripping over this word. I'm so sorry. But it's like we're living a human experience as a spiritual being. We're a spiritual being living a human experience. And, once we really get that there is a life beyond the 3 dimensions here, and that we are very limited by our thinking and by our linguistics and by our forms of self-expression, and therefore don't often explore the essence of spirituality and divinity, and that words themselves don't naturally fit that description. They're not entirely useful to describe the experience of what divinity or what spirituality is. So because we're limited in our binary and linear ways of thinking, we often take spirituality and kind of warp it. Back in the day, when I was working the emergency rooms in psychiatry, if people came in and they said things that were spiritual, we would actually consider that a psychological symptom. And they could be admitted to the hospital for saying something about their love of God, or God will help me, or, if they said something a little bit off into the woo-woo land, we would call them psychotic. And then so oftentimes they would get admitted and eventually get antipsychotic medication by injection, even to help turn around
the artificial distinction between so if you talk to God is fine, but if God responds, then you're mentally ill. And
right.
So there's that, and it's like, where do you draw the line as well? It seems like very odd.
Yeah, we humans have made some arbitrary distinctions about where mental health and mental illness, the line between those 2 things are very, very, very nebulous and very vague.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And I think, again, what got you on this path too? I mean, you started as a conventional psychiatrist, right? And so what was it that led you on this path? And you've been doing this for various years, for decades right now, right? So what was the perhaps defining moment? What made you think like, oh, there's something else out there, and maybe we need to change our way of seeing things?
Right. So when I first went into psychiatry, I already knew there was something else out there. I went in, I had a job as a mental health worker, a childcare worker at a local state hospital for adolescent boys. And it was there that I really realized that human connection was at the heart of all healing, because that's what I had to do. I worked the afternoon shift and I just connect with my residents, and then we would both heal. Everyone would heal. We just had a great time. But I really didn't like psychiatry. I really thought psychiatry was headed in the wrong direction. And I went into psychiatry so that I could bring human connection back into that field. I didn't go in because I love psychiatry. I never loved psychiatry. And while I was there, is when Prozac was introduced to all of us. And, you know, Prozac was a super big deal. Prozac is the first drug that created this whole notion of a chemical imbalance or of biological psychiatry. And by the time I got out of residency, I had already had enough sunken costs that I was now going to be a diagnostician and a psychopharmacologist, whether I liked it or not. So over the next several decades, I've written over 100,000 prescriptions, but each of them have been sort of heartache or, soul sacrifice at some level, because I kind of knew the whole time that what I was doing wasn't necessarily the best for the client. And, you know, the Hippocratic Oath requires me to first do no harm. And there I was anyway, sort of prescribing medicines and making diagnoses against my better judgment in many cases. And that led to a lot of issues. And so in 2006, I began to do something different, and that was to take people off of medicine altogether. And I took my low-risk patients off of medicine, and they got way better reliably. Oftentimes, their diagnosis totally disappeared. And over the next 10 years, I traveled around the country and around the world working psychiatry from multiple different arenas, continuing to express that I thought medications weren't necessarily the best route. And even therapy or diagnoses wasn't always the best route. And when I did that, I eventually came to Welcome to Humanity, which is self-explanatory and basically just underlines the notion that all of the experiences that we're having as human, even the really miserable ones, the very painful ones, the nearly intolerable or unspeakable ones, they're all part of the potpourri of magic that what it is to be human in this short time on Earth. And we're giving an opportunity to embrace and learn and grow from that. That's what Welcome to Humanity represents. And from Welcome to Humanity, that's where I created the books that you've already talked about, The Creative 8 and the Find Your True Voice, and also created my podcast and created the courses that I've created, the Find Your True Voice course and the Healing the Healer course.
Wonderful. Yeah, that's amazing. I was just thinking of a prescription of, like, read this book or do a dance or something like that. That's more creative, but also really helpful. And it's been like neglected in various ways, and just focus too much on the medical model, which is not always effective and often does not address the root issues, as again, when it comes to mental health. And I think that's absolutely fascinating. So you are a non-diagnosing psychiatrist, an undoctor. I find that very, very fascinating too. And I think what's also one thing just to mention here is we have the pursuit of happiness, right? And that's what the United States is built upon. But it seems like it's always pursuing and improving. But we are happy and we're perfect as we are right now. And if we notice that, then we realize we don't really have to pursue much. You can just engage with things on a much more deeper level, right?
Right, exactly. Yeah, if you can really see that the data doesn't have to change, and the data is not going to change, actually. This is the data. Happiness can be formed with the data you're presently in, even if you're choosing at some level to be miserable. And again, I use the word choice. We have a choice as to what we do with the data that's here. Things aren't turning out the way we want them to, or that person said a bad thing, or you see that those people are really wrong and hurting people, or, the weather is bad, or your mother-in-law insulted you, or something like that. It can have us be that we get really miserable. We tend to take a beeline towards misery. But the truth is that we can use the same data and create a sense of satisfaction in our present life, just like it is right now. And that's a good idea rather than pursuing it, because pursuing it assumes that it's not here already.
It's a lack. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, wonderful. Thank you so much, Dr. Fred Moss. You're a psychiatrist, author, podcaster. You do a lot of things. You're very busy. You also are a speaker, as a keynote speaker. Thank you so much for being on Rash's World. It was such a pleasure talking to you and so enlightening. So thank you again.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much. And if there's anything I can do for you or your listeners, please let me know. The best way to find me is to find me on drfred360.com. If you go to drfred360.com, you can see everything I'm up to. There's some cool freebies there. You can download my books. You can get even an audio version of the Creative 8 that I did. And you can get some, some cool lead magnets, like the 5 ways to discover your true voice. And it's a pretty fun site where you can see everything I'm up to and connect with me. And I invite your listeners to do that.
Sounds excellent. Thank you so much.
All right, and here we go. Amazing. All right, everybody. Welcome to a very interesting and thought-provoking episode of Business Story of the Week. Today, we've got a superstar. This guy is not only a medical doctor, a psychiatrist, and an entrepreneur, but also interested and has made it his life's work to improve humanity. And we're going to talk about what that looks like. Dr. Fred Moss is a prominent mental health advocate, a psychiatrist, and he's been a captivating keynote speaker. With deep-rooted commitment to helping individuals discover their true selves, Dr. Fred is the driving force behind Welcome to Humanity, a movement that is part of the True Voice Mastermind. Through the transformative power of communication, he fosters healing and genuine connections. As an accomplished author of Creative 8, Healing Through Creativity and Self-Expression, and Find Your True Voice, Dr. Fred has also penned numerous enlightening articles for magazines like Psychology Today. Recently, he unveiled the groundbreaking True Voice course that empowers individuals to reclaim their voice and share their message with the world. Furthermore, his virtual course and mastermind, Healing the Healer, provides invaluable support to healers in transition. And we're going to talk about what that means because I'm not sure I know. Notably, Dr. Fred's thought-provoking essay, Global Madness, What Must Happen to Unite, has been making some of the moves and some of the rounds here. Join us as we delve into the inspiring world of Dr. Fred Moss. Dr. Moss, welcome to Business Story of the Week. Great to see you today.
It's great to see you. Thanks for having me, Shaheen. It's really just wonderful to be on the show. Thanks.
So as we do on Business Story of the Week, let's start out just very briefly with your story, because I know you are a disruptor in all areas that you get involved in, but particularly medicine and psychiatry, which traditionally has not been going down the road that you've gone. Tell us about that and tell us about your journey to becoming who you are now.
Right. Now we could go back a long ways. We could go back to the moment I was born, as that was my function, to be a disruptor. I came into a family that was ready to be disrupted, and they called on me to do that. So that's when I earned those stripes. But let's take a big leap for the first 20 years of my life, where clearly every teacher who had me would call me a disruptor, for sure, in those first 20 years, just for historical reasons. But if we look at what happened next, I dropped out of college twice. College didn't work for me, and it wasn't a place where I knew that learning could take place. It wasn't a place where healthy discourse could take place. And I knew that all learning and all human healing was actually brought on by human connection. I was already a big advocate, completely enchanted by human connection as a source of all healing. My mom got me a job, or got me an application for a job, as a state mental health hospital for adolescent boys. And there, I really learned and finally started getting paid to connect with other people and have that be the source of our healing. And it wasn't just the source of my clients' healing, who were about 7 years younger than me, but also my healing and everyone else too. When we had open and honest, authentic communications, people heal. And that's still, of course, at the very core of what humanity is about. The thing I hated more than anything else was the way psychiatry was dealing with these kids. I really really disliked psychiatry, and that's why I went into it. Basically, I went into it because psychiatry was already becoming a medicalized field, was already becoming a medicine-based field, a biological field, a field where you called a psychiatrist when you needed someone to be either chemically or physically restrained for behaviors that we thought were untoward or out of bounds for what we expected. So we would call the psychiatrist. He would come down, interview the child for 3 minutes, interview us for 3 seconds, I should say, and then interview us for like 7 seconds, and then go into the chart and write something. And we'd have to go retrieve the child, hold him down, and jam him full of some adult-grade cocktail to put him out of his misery. And if he stayed in a stupor for the next 24 hours, we called that a success story. To me, that was just heinous, barbaric, and unacceptable. And I actually made it my business to go back to school a third time so that I could become a psychiatrist and re-inject at my very best the notion that all that's really necessary in order to cure somebody or in order to heal somebody is truly to become completely connected with them. And that's why I went back into the field. In the meantime, though, the field went through some paradigmatic shifts, as you might recall, which was that Prozac got invented in 1987. That completely altered the face of the entire mental health world. And medicine became the core value of the psychiatric industry. Over the next 40 years, I was typecast with golden handcuffs to be a psychiatrist, the one who was a psychopharmacological expert. And indeed, I did become that, even though, of course, I went into the field because that was the last thing I wanted to do. For the next 100,000 prescriptions that I wrote, there were several of them. In fact, most and all of them had some degree of heartache or soul sacrifice associated with it. And I knew that I am not a medicator as a primary way of being. Instead, I'm a connector, a human connector, and I help people actually find their core self. So like tuning forks, they can connect to other people. If we resonate with our core values, that's when we get to be ourselves and create the opportunity for other people to resonate with us. And inside of that connection comes true and honest healing. Welcome to Humanity was birthed in 2016 or so, and that now is, self-explanatory. And as sort of knockoffs from Welcome to Humanity is when I wrote my next 2 books, The Creative 8, Healing Through Creativity and Self-Expression, and Find Your True Voice. And True Voice just became a way of being, became like that's just who I am, along with being the Undoctor.
We're gonna get to that. So let's talk a little bit. Let's rewind for 1 second. So okay, so you're now a psychiatrist. You're working in psychiatric hospitals. You are working and seeing some of the most dramatic events that we would imagine could happen in psychiatric hospitals. You're now explain just really briefly to the people on the show, what's the difference between a psychiatrist and a psychologist?
That's a really good question. And these days, there's a typecast, ready-made answer for that question. I think the general public answers that question with one sentence, which is that the psychiatrist is the one who prescribes medicine. And
gotcha.
But in real life, the psychiatrist is the one who went to medical school. It's a completely different schooling. And the only thing that's similar to them, sort of like the similarity between ophthalmologists and optometrists, is that they sound somewhat alike in their word choice. But in reality, we're not very alike. Psychologists tend to use talk therapy or different methodologies and don't have prescription rights. And they drop off, or we should say they dump, or they, in some ways, refer to psychiatry when they're at their wit's end, hoping that we can somehow affect their patients by dropping laboratory medicines down their throat. And doesn't really work, but that's what psychiatry is about.
Got it. So interesting. So you signed up for the program. You're like, guys, I want to be a healer. I want to be a doctor. I take this Hippocratic oath seriously. My purpose in this planet is to heal people, so I am going to go into psychiatry. You became a medical doctor, guys, so you know he's got all the privileges and rights and licenses of a medical doctor,
exactly.
not just a counselor. And you go into this industry thinking, hey, man, I'm going to make a change. I'm going to disrupt. I'm going to make an impact, only to be dissuaded by the fact that they're over-medicating people, from what I understand from your story, and when they could be healing people, they're just treating the symptoms. So you decided, hey, this isn't what I want to be a part of. I'm going to change the paradigm. I'm going to change the storyline here and alter reality. Like Steve Jobs would say, I'm going to put a dent in the universe. And so you went on to doing some pretty revolutionary stuff, some pretty disruptive stuff, which is what has led you to where you are now. And that's find your true voice and the True Voice Mastermind. Am I right there?
Yeah, that's a couple of the things that are outgrowths of this process for sure.
Okay. So now, who are the people who you serve? Who are the people who reach out to you now? Are you still in private practice, or have you moved exclusively towards more being a performance coach, dealing with personal growth and creativity and the authentic voice and that type of thing?
Yeah, so I'm no longer practicing medicine in the way that people would say that's called conventional psychiatry. I'm no longer doing that. I don't accept insurance. I'm not seeing patients. I don't work in a hospital or clinic. Instead, I call myself a transformational restorative coach. And I'm helping people who are on the fringes, either trying to get out of the field or trying to get back into the field. And that includes both patients and the providers. So patients who are interested in, who might think there's something wrong with them and they want to get into the field, I like to consider myself the last exit before they make that very, very challenging decision. And people who are who are in the field, patients who have been medicated and treated and diagnosed and feel either mistreated or tired of being sick and tired, these are people who I also assist in walking themselves outside of the field. So helping them get outside the throes of the psychiatric industrial complex. With respect to the providers, that healing the healer that we already spoke of a little bit is about disenchanted providers who went into the field expecting one thing. Everyone who goes into the field as a healer pretty much is counting on the fact that they have the blessings and gifts to be able to help people. That's why people go into the field. But not too long after entering the field, they learn that that's not what the field's about. And it has a meat grinder effect. And it really washes away that level of heart and soul. Those people need some assistance, some hugging and embracing, and some realignment as well. And a lot of my heart and soul these days is aimed at helping those people actually find their true voice and either walk back into the field revitalized or finding a new direction to go in their life that's more aligned with their true self.
Amazing. Yeah. So let's bring this back. So this is interesting. The show's called Business Story of the Week. Most of our people who listen to us are entrepreneurs, aspiring entrepreneurs, some entrepreneurs, but generally people that are interested in how they can become better in business. And this is why I've had you on the show. I've always found you a very fascinating person, and we like to have disruptors on the show. We like to have people who go into entire industries and have the capability to go say, hey, you know what? This might be a crazy idea and I might fail, but this can also change everything. Exactly. And it could really be paradigm shifting. So that's why I wanted to have you on. And this is one of the most interesting things. I'm interested in hearing your take about this. So I talk to people about sales. I tell people all the time that if you have one skill that's irreplaceable, that will make you valuable forever, that will make you completely, totally unfireable and the most valuable person in any organization, and that's sales. But here's the thing. You've got to stop selling. I tell people this all the time. And people look at me with a blank stare. They're like, what do you mean? I've read all these sales books and I've got all these scripts that I say. And I just tell them, excuse my language, shut the fuck up. Exactly. All you have to do is become an authentic person. And exactly. I love that about what you're saying. Serve people. Come from underneath and say, how can I serve you? But just be a real person. Just be genuine. Stop selling. And it's the easiest way to sell. What do you think about that? How does that fit into the work that you do?
Yeah, I couldn't be more aligned with that, Shaheen. And that's why that's why we're friends. I think that's very, very clear. We're not just friends. I mean, that's why I love you. And I think that's why you have me on your show today, which is, I really think that's the only way. If selling is, when you use the word selling, you're almost implying sort of conniving and manipulating and getting someone and, catching someone and making the decision to throw money at you for your services. Whereas what I think you're talking about, which is presenting my authentic self as, this is who you get to work with, or this is who we get to work together. It is my authentic self that sells itself, that actually creates the clients and the downline and the network and the interest and the raving fans. And the way you do that, the only way to do that, the only way to reliably do that, and the only way to uniquely stand out in a crowd is to be your authentic self. And that's the only thing that's going to guarantee honest to goodness selling as almost as a responsibility. Like if I have a service that's important for the world, it's my responsibility to get it out there. And the only way I can get it out there is to present myself authentically with what it is that I represent. And in and of itself, that authentic self, that authentic presentation, that capacity to be genuine in a conversation opens up the gates for people to want to work with me or work with you or work with anyone, as long as there is, just consistent and honest to goodness access to what is truly at the core. What are the vulnerabilities? What are the concerns? What are the confusions? Feel free to speak to those pains as if they're yours, because they are. And that's going to be the best way to be not only a conscious entrepreneur, but in these days, a scalable, leverageable, and successful entrepreneur only has that as his access to be an entrepreneur, to be a successful entrepreneur.
Yeah. So look, we live in the distraction economy. Everything is trying to steal your most valuable asset, right? We live in a distraction economy. Everything is trying to steal your most valuable asset, your time and your attention. People don't know anymore. And I found this repeatedly. If they're being authentic or repeating something they saw on TikTok or Instagram, how can individuals find their authentic voice and effectively communicate their message to create the meaningful connections that you teach about?
Right. It's a great question. And here's the thing that I have to trust when people ask that question. My answer is always based on, when you're being authentic. You're actually your finest judge. When you have to remember what you just said, because you might have to say it again, rather than speaking from your heart and soul of what's so. Because when you speak from your heart and soul what's so, you never have to remember what you said. You're never going to have to cover yourself up. You're never going to have to fabricate or exaggerate a story in order to make a point. You're never going to have to fabricate or exaggerate a story in order to make a point. You are never going to have to pretend to be somebody else in order to protect the person that you are. You never are going to have to do that. When you're being inauthentic. And it takes practice, because we have learned over time. There's a crack in the cement that has occurred over time that has allowed us to learn that if we exaggerate or if we fabricate a story, we get what we want now at the cost of our inauthenticity. And so we did that as children. There was a crack in the cement that grew, and we never went back to repair it. And what's here now is to realize that all that's really counted on, we are all authenticity police. And all people really want more than anything is authenticity. And authenticity trumps agreement every single day. Have you noticed that if you're talking to someone who's diametrically opposed to you on a particular topic, but they're speaking from their heart, you actually not only can tolerate them, you're curious and interested in what their viewpoint is. On the other hand, if someone is simply agreeing with you so that they can avoid conflict, that's a discardable person, a dismissible person, even if they're on the same track as you. We don't care so much about whether or not people agree with us. We care a lot about whether someone is speaking from their authentic self. And it does take practice to undo that fear-based way of thinking that has us learn that we better be afraid what we say, or we're going to be thrown off the island, or dismissed or ostracized, and start learning that what people really want more than anything is for us to be aligned with our own core values.
Yeah, that's so true. And so we now live in a world where everybody is stressed out. People think, oh man, I'm stressed out, I'm overwhelmed. Dude, everybody is stressed out. Everybody is overwhelmed. Everybody is burnt out. We've come out of 4 years of being trapped in our houses and worried about if we're going to get toilet paper or not. And people are now coming to the place where we're coming out of that, right? The great plague that struck in the Middle Ages, Asenia pestis, and really tore apart most of the modern world ended. And there was a period of revival, a period that came out of that, right? The great Renaissance that came out of that. And so now we're approaching a time where we are coming out of the worst of the most recent plague that we had. And people are burnt out. People are tired. And this will be my last question for you before I know people are itching now to learn about how they can connect with you and learn about your course. And we'll go into that, and I'll ask you how people can connect with you. But in days like this, in times like this where people are coming out, how can leaders promote mental wellness and create healthy work-life balance and get to their authentic self and develop meaningful connections?
That's really a beautiful question, well stated, as usual, super articulate, and I truly appreciate it. The idea here is there might be nothing wrong with you. It's really important to understand that when you talk about mental wellness, that's not the same as talking about always being comfortable. Mental wellness is not equivalent to being comfortable all the time. Being uncomfortable in an uncomfortable world actually represents mental wellness. The idea is you're allowed to be afraid. You're allowed to be anxious. You're allowed to be depressed. You're allowed to be confused. You're allowed to be aimless. You're allowed to be tired. You're allowed to be scattered. These negative vibration experiences are only components of what it means to be normal in today's world. And if there is nothing wrong with you, you don't have to go get undone or fixed. For sure, what we need in this world where we all find ourselves out of balance is to be rebalanced. And the best way to be rebalanced is to connect with another person. So the Creative 8, it's a little bit of a trailer alert here. The Creative 8 has a punchline at the end that says that helping anybody do anything is the trump card we get to use. So being of service. And the reason that is such a beautiful way to sort of cure ourselves of our mental illness symptoms is there is no core experience better than service of connecting with another person. There's no core experience that is more potent than connecting with another person in service that allows us to relieve our so-called psychiatric or mental wellness symptoms. And the best way to feel mentally well is to connect with another person, because rebalance naturally occurs in that direction when that happens. So what should our leaders do? The thing that our leaders need to do, and we've already touched on this, so it comes already as a repeat, is be authentic themselves. It is critical that a leader creates a space where their own authenticity is on display, because that opens up the capacity for those who are following them or those who are emulating them to open up for themselves. And once we do that, we can create the harmonic resonance necessary to connect with other people. And at the core of that human connection is where human healing will and does always take place.
Amazing. So that's been super enlightening, Dr. Moss. How do people engage you? How do people get a hold of you? I know you're a speaker. I know you have books. I know you have a website. I'm sure our audience wants to learn more about finding their authentic voice and using creativity and self-expression in their own private healing journey. How do we get there?
So just this afternoon, I'm building a site that's, I'm having the unveiling, if you say, of my site called drfred360.com. And drfred360.com will be the best place to find me and everything that I'm up to. So this is actually getting finalized this afternoon. All the pieces are in place. So I'm going to risk it and say the best place to find me is at drfred360.com. There are several different things that are there, including access to the previews to my True Voice course, and you can get PDFs of my books, and you can get also a trailer to talk about Healing the Healer, as well as how to get a hold of me through email or through social media or through texting. All the classic ways to get a hold of me are there. I am on social media. I like to play mostly on LinkedIn more than Facebook, and those are the two that I generally place on. But really, Fred, drfred360.com, by the time this airs, is the best place for me to be.
And for you guys listening or viewing this, Dr. Fred is not spelled out. So it's DRFRED, the number 360.com. So it's DRFRED 360.com. So make sure you go and check that. And I know Dr. Fred's going to put up some special treats for the viewers and listeners to our show, and those will be up there as well. So make sure to look for those. Dr. Fred, thank you so much for being on the show. Really appreciate you.
It's been an honor. Thank you so much, Shaheen. Great questions and great conversation. Really appreciate it.
And we'd love to have you on for a longer form interview because I'd love to dig deeper into this. Would you be willing to come back on at a later time?
Of course. I look forward to that.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Amazing. Thank you.
Your present condition is not permanent. Mental health coaching is about living in the now. By no longer focusing on the past, by no longer focusing on diagnoses, and certainly by no longer focusing on pharmacology as a way of dealing with this, all sorts of new realms of possibilities emerge. Over time, what I've realized is that medicine actually perpetuates, if not causes, the symptoms that it's marketed to treat. And the diagnosis also perpetuates the symptoms that meet the criteria to meet that diagnosis. Who I'm most interested in helping, who shows up in my office, are people who either A, are not interested in going into conventional psychiatry to deal with their mental distress because they've heard terrible things or they don't expect any kind of positive results. The other group that's really interesting for me are the people who have been in psychiatry, often for decades, carrying on with their diagnosis and their treatment, and they're just sick and tired of getting worse. These people are looking for a new way of being, of a new level of freedom and power from what they have so far been calling their own mental illness. As a function of the work that we do in my office, there's an alleviation, a diminishment, and even a disappearance of the symptoms that otherwise were considered so distressful that they were interfering with functioning. There'll be a whole new sense of being heard, of being listened to, of communication. And all healing is a function of direct and honest communication between one person and another. If this is actually an interesting or a resonating conversation with you, if you find yourself getting a little bit excited about what might be possible for you or your loved one, I invite you to give me a call or to write me onto my website so that I can contact you. What if a new sense of self-expression, creativity, power, and freedom was readily available to you? That's what I'm after. You matter a lot.
People actually want authenticity more than they want agreement. Have you ever noticed that when someone disagrees with you, but they're saying it from their heart, it's not so hard to listen to them? We really love authenticity, all of us. And the key ingredient to that is listening. I know that sounds weird, but really what I'm saying is know what's being called for in the environment that you're in. Know what it would take to move the needle forward, to actually advance the conversation. Listen to who's there with you so you know where they're coming from before you speak.
Hello, my name is Dr. Fred Moss, and I'm here with my co-host, my wonderful good friend, Sam Morris. We're the Wizard and the Warrior, and we're here to present to you this new podcast called Insanity. That's 2 words, Insanity, where we really take on the thin line between being sane and being insane.
And there's not a lot that Fred and I have in common other than our appreciation for deep, authentic conversations with interesting people.
Yep, I'd say that too. I mean, we don't have that much in common, and deep, authentic conversations is one thing, but we have another thing in common, actually, Sam, don't we? I mean, we're nonconformists. There's nothing about us that's a whole lot like the other people who are supposed to be like us.
We are both able to really tear a hole in the fabric of normal conversations and bring in topics and themes and questions that a lot of people simply aren't addressing these days.
Yeah, it really is. It's something that takes a toll on our brain. I mean, we start looking at like all the different ways that people manage life. And we start doing so by having these great conversations with respect, with compassion, with insight, with humor, really looking at what are our guests having to offer? What are they doing to get through this crazy world? What are they doing with their own sense of insanity?
Yeah, and you know, one thing that you and I do better than just about anyone else is we are able to bridge the type of conversation that might happen in a lecture hall or in an intellectual circle, bridge those types of conversations with the average people out there who need to have these things broken down to them so these high-level concepts can reach a much larger audience.
I mean, from the lecture hall to the streets, right? Or from the mansion to the crack house, that's where we are, Sam, each of us, both entirely comfortable there. But you know, whichever I am, I'm always asking the question, are we going insane? Are we going flipping insane? I mean, look around us. You know, the world appears to be going insane, or at least it thinks it is, or maybe this is called sanity. What do you think, Sam?
Are we really living in a post-truth world? That's the question. Or is truth just struggling to catch up with how quickly things are changing? I mean, the structures and the institutions that we are so used to are all falling apart right in front of our eyes. So having interesting conversations and engaging these guests and being able to bridge that intellectual discussion with the average person is our goal.
Whoa, I am telling you, I feel that thing to my core. Every time I blow my mind, it hurts. You know, it turns out that I blow my mind like several times a day. And really what's happening here is that we really are like taking a peek at that thin line, that little razor's edge that lands in between sanity and insanity.
Yeah, you know, when we put our heads together, the types of conversations that come out are just amazing. Everything from deep metaphysical conversations to super practical myopic conversations and everything in between. And we talk about things from media to entertainment to technology to science. And we can go deep on a lot of these subjects and ask questions that other people simply aren't asking.
So each and every episode, we're going to treat you a little bit to our conversation because they really are fun. And we really do go on the far edges of different topics.
And one thing about you and me, Fred, is we are just normal guys, but we happen to be able to have high-level discussions with a number of different themes.
Yep, exactly. You know, with tenacity and with relentlessness and with fearlessness, I think our audience can expect you, Sam Morris, and me, Fred Moss, to take on these conversations in ways that are unexpected and maybe have never been done before.
I'm an experienced executive coach, and Dr. Fred is a board-certified psychiatrist for the past 30 years. He's been in that profession, and yet it's not really so much about our resumes on paper as much as our experiential education. Fred lived nomadically around the world and had engaged with people on whole different levels than a lot of people engage with people. Not your typical psychiatrist. I happen to be paraplegic for the past 21 years, so I've been through deep trauma, both psychologically and physically, that I bring to the table, and it's really created a really deep sense of humanity inside of me. So we bring some really interesting personal experience to the equation.
It turns out that Sam Morris and Fred Moss have a lot to say, and it's going to be really fun to share with you what we say to each other and even share with you what we get with our guests. It is with total privilege that I now announce my great and highest honor to work with Sam Morris in bringing you the Insanity Podcast. If you want to get a hold of us, the information is right down here. It's sure going to be a fun time, right, Sam? I can't wait.
I feel the same, Fred. I'm really excited about bringing insanity to you.
All right, we are back, and you know, we had a technical difficulty. Like even my computer blew up on that Sam story. Like like Phoenix got blown out the door, and he was not to be found. And then my computer broke down. Folks, that's just a tip of the iceberg of what you can expect from my co-host Sam Morris. I mean, that's the shit you get to deal with for the rest of this show. That's why we're talking about longevity, because I know I'm with this guy. And how can you turn that shit off? What a story, Sam. Banana Rave. Thank you so much for opening up the Insanity Podcast with that.
My pleasure. It seems fitting. It seems
awesome,
fitting.
Man. Just great. Okay, well, Phoenix, that's the kind of thing you can expect to run into. And really, you're getting still the kindergarten version of this stuff so far. Okay. And so now the next thing we're going to do, I think, you know, if we don't have like a commercial or something, right? There's no commercials on the show, right? So far, anyways, maybe.
I mean, we could make one up if you want.
Yeah, maybe there'll be one.
Best part of week. Probably even if I sing a jingle, it will probably get pulled off or something like that. So.
Yeah, you see, we're really in progress. You're in process here, Phoenix. This is like
research and development.
You're coming on at the bedrock, you know? Okay. We haven't built any rooms or anything. This is just like flat foundation. And it's not even flat. It's rocky foundation, and you got to deal with it, bro. Cool. I mean, that's what we have. I wish we had more, but we don't.
And we're like how many minutes in, and we haven't even really said hello to our amazing guest here, Phoenix Thunderberg, yet. We're just, he's kind of, let's dive right in. Let's find out about this amazing guy here. What is going on, brother Phoenix?
Yeah, Phoenix Thunderbird. Like, what are you doing here? That's the new Pajama Jam question. What are you doing here?
I don't know, honestly. I think I'm here just to have this human experience, and I'm enjoying it now. This stage, at least, it's been really intense up until this point, but life is it's taken quite the turn in the positive direction, and I'm really, really excited about the future and everything that's happening in the world. I think I was a little thrown off by the first podcast, the title, and now I'm seeing that this is more of like possibly like a comedy show.
No. That's it for comedy for the night. Okay. This is it.
I'm like,
we overloaded the comedy.
I'm ready for this.
No.
Yeah, but
I'm sure you won't be alone. You will not be alone. Yes. Well, you know, something that has stood out to me as I've been looking into you, Phoenix, is you are one of these guys who has just an extremes to extremes kind of story, where it sounds like you have some serious depth and pain, which has been transmuted into something incredibly inspiring and purposeful. And so, you know, you're the type of person who I just love to find out more about. So can you bring us through some of that pain and some of that inspiration and some of your story of how you got to be who you are today?
Yeah, I'd love to. So I could start at the beginning, but it's just so much. And so I think instead of that, I could just start at kind of like the turning point for me. It was about 3 years ago. And so 2018, I was coming out of a 10-day inpatient hospitalization. I had been homeless for a few years. I tried to kill myself for the third time. And I was completely psychotic, hearing voices. I was convinced that everyone on the planet wanted me to kill myself because everything was my fault, meaning all the war, all the homelessness, all the drug addiction somehow was all because I didn't love myself enough. And that had come from a lot of psychedelic experiences mixed with, you know, fasting and staying up for days on end, and kind of like a really bad trip, but it just never ended. And I used heroin for many years to kind of try to numb that pain. And I finally had decided enough was enough. And I had already tried to get sober so many times. I think this one was like my 7th inpatient drug treatment center. And the universe just had this kind of funny joke, because I was in the psych ward and they said, we have a bed opening up at the Phoenix house. And I'm like, they didn't even know my name was Phoenix because I had my legal name. You know, they didn't know I'd gone by that. And I was just like, what? The universe, you know, kind of showing me this little synchronicity. And then, I just decided it felt different that time, even though I was still hearing all the voices, and, sometimes people would still I'd have that really intense paranoia. Over time, it's kept getting easier and easier, because I would tell people what I was thinking. And a lot of times they'd be like, no, dude, you're great. Like, don't even trip. We love you. And I just knew that I had to do it without pharmaceuticals, because for me, I just felt like they would hold me back from really the healing that I needed to go through. And during the time, though, that led up to all this insanity, like, I did have these really mind-blowing awakening experiences where I would see myself as the highest version of myself, doing all the things I could do in this lifetime. And I would see all the pain that I had gone through, all the, sexual abuse, all of the time in prison, all of the time in the military. It was all like for this purpose of giving me this vision and this willingness and this purpose to create what I'm creating today. And so now I'm in such a place of gratitude for all that stuff that I had been through. It's really mind blowing, this whole like journey as it's unfolded to this point, and what's going to continue to unfold as a result of all the things that I'd been through. So it's really such a trip, and I'm so much better today because of all the things that I still do on a regular basis, like meditation, eating healthy, ecstatic dance, breath work, all these things that have given me the ability to just stay present and not listen to those different voices. So I hope that's kind of it in a nutshell.
Dude, I am left in a funny position in the three of us, because I think your story just actually trumped the banana rave. And I got nothing to match these two stories. So I just want to let you know I'm going to back away and leave this up to you guys. Dude, that is just, go ahead, bring it.
Well, I was just going to say, I was looking into what you do with being a psychiatrist, and I have a feeling that what a peer specialist is, and that's really, I'm a certified peer specialist now.
Oh my God!
And because of the time that when I finally did get sober, I found this mental health community center called Share, which is completely peer ran, meaning everybody that works there has had lived experience of extreme states. Or have experienced the mental health recovery system directly. And it gives people like me the unique ability to help other people that are stuck in that state that I was in. Whereas, a lot of times therapists or counselors or doctors don't understand, because they can't relate at that level, where I really fully know what it's like to be in that place. And so people are more likely to listen when I just share what I did for myself. These are the things that I do, and I'm so grateful for that ability to empathize.
Okay. So now you're walking in my territory a little bit. So I'll speak to some degree of experience in what you're talking about. And
Fred, get a little closer to your mic.
I just think that your level of authenticity and beauty is, I think I might have said this to you when we met, but it's beyond extraordinary. And when I was, I met you, of course, before Sam did, and Sam asked me, well, who is this Phoenix Thunderbird, Fred? And all I could really remember is your pain and your authenticity and your recovery and your beauty. And I'm left with it again, But I'm so curious, your ease of dealing with the extraordinary transformations that your soul has gone through in simply the last 3 Earth years, actually, is so beyond comprehension. I do have 40,000 patients in my background. I do. I know a little bit about peer specialists, obviously. And I know a little bit about what it's like to be hospitalized for the 7th time, unsuccessfully. But I don't know a lot of guys who dropped it and said, pharmaceuticals aren't going to work for me and I need to find my way out of here and I'm about to become a master of the universe and watch me and get the fuck out of my way. And by the way, I'm going to take every peer I can touch and bring them forward with me because we have an experience that's otherwise unexperienceable. I can see that. And that's why my heart's singing in your presence. Really. So.
Look at that smile, man. Look at that smile. Wow.
Right?
This is some true mission from God stuff going on right here. I mean, we can talk all day about what it means and what it looks like to live a purposeful life following a higher path, but Phoenix is really embodying it as much as, if not more than, I think anyone I've ever met. And the fact that, you just spoke to this, Fred,
a lot too,
the fact that this is 3 years out. I mean, that's like the blink of an eye. That's a blink of an eye. 3 years is not a long time. I'm looking at you. I'm looking at this peaceful, present, calm, beautiful guy. And it's amazing to think that just 3 years ago, you were in so much turmoil.
Yeah, it's I somehow knew it too before, like the universe just showed me, like maybe 7 years ago, 6 years ago, that I would have to go through that for some reason. And I saw it in a vision. Like I knew that I was going to have to go through all this extra pain in order to have more clarity as far as how to help. Because if I had activated or gotten sober back at that point, it was like I wouldn't be able to help as many people as I was meant to help. And so I was so angry at God when I realized that it was during a mushroom ceremony. I just saw everything more that because I had already gotten sober. I was like, enough. I can't continue to go back into that darkness. And then God showed me, like, what about these people? And I was like, oh, really? You're going to put that on me? And it was just like, I had to accept it. And I did. And now this whole vision has like completely transformed, and I have so much more clarity with the direction that we're going in. And yeah, I mean, I'm only 34. And
my ass, man. 3,400 maybe.
So I'm glad I got it over with. Still I got some good time left. And yeah, man, there's just so much that we've gotten done in this last 3 years after I really got crystal clear. And so many people have come around through the process of, first, it just started with me like wanting to go back to share, to serve. And I just started facilitating ecstatic dance because that was, for me, I found ecstatic dance on accident in solitary confinement in prison. I was in the military. I hurt my back. They put me on pharmaceuticals. I started using harder drugs and they sent me to prison. And 2 months of that I spent in solitary confinement.
Okay, that's a pretty fucked up deal. Let me just stop right there. People don't have fucking stories that they bring out into the world that are that powerful. You just delivered in the last 10 seconds just a fucking dagger, man. That is just a story in itself after coming after this other story. I mean, continue, but holy Christ, man.
Yeah.
Keep bringing it. Fucking amazing.
Yeah. So, I mean, I was getting medically discharged for my back. Like, they were going to give me severance pay. I was going to get disability. And then they saw that I was drug seeking. They yanked all my painkillers, and then I went and got heroin. And then, yeah. So I went from being an F-22 crew chief, had my name on the side of this $160 million jet, to janitor. And I just became so depressed. I just started drinking, and then one thing led to another. And then I'm in prison, 2 months in solitary confinement. I just start screaming cathartically, kicking the door, losing my shit basically, to the point where I finally, I was hyperventilating, and then I had an out-of-body experience. Like, I literally just started weeping gratitude, and I was releasing all this pain. And it was the first time that I had ever had any kind of experience like that without drugs. And shortly after getting out of prison, I found a documentary called Electronic Awakening. And it talked all about the neuroscience that electronic music has on the brain, because every time you hear a new sound, your brain has to store that sound. And so it creates new neural pathways. So the music itself is transcendental. And so it talked about moon tribes and how these different raves were getting shut down, and people were going into nature and having these spiritual experiences without drugs. And then they mentioned ecstatic dance. And so I looked it up. I went to the first one, and I recreated that same experience I had in prison. And I was sold. I was like, this is it. I'm going to start DJing. I'm going to start throwing events. And that was probably 6 years ago. So I love ecstatic dance. And I started bringing that to Share, the largest mental health community center in LA. And they loved it. I mean, because everybody's doing like the 12-step support groups, and it's just, it's nice to have the movement aspect to the wellness.
Brilliant. Thank you. So I worked at Folsom. I worked at Pelican Bay. I didn't get to the solitary blocks because you got to be a special kind of doctor to visit those guys. But I definitely worked in the yard and in the block, enough to get a bird's eye view. And I was actually arrested once in Phoenix, just to tell you that. But that's a whole different story and would lighten this up too much. But I was arrested in Phoenix. I was arrested in Phoenix. Ask Sam. He even knows.
All right. So what was it about? Do I actually remember the story? You were arrested.
That was when I stole that salami.
You stole salami? Wait, you got arrested
never heard
for stealing salami?
Oh, I thought you heard that shit.
I don't think so.
Yeah, petty theft, bro. It makes Alice's restaurant look small.
Please don't tell me. Please don't tell me you hid it in your underwear.
You know, you guys have told some stories, and I challenged you. I said that I don't have anything to match either of your two stories, but it turns out this mother does match both those stories. And I have the 45-minute version, I have the 12-minute version, I have the 8-minute version, and I have the 4-minute version. I've told the story a few times. I was buzzing on my way through Phoenix on my way, like after I dropped out of college again, and I was going from Detroit to Berkeley, but the Greyhound went through Phoenix, and I had a friend and lived in Phoenix, an old buddy that we just spoke about early today, and may he rest in peace, Spencer. Yeah, a beautiful man. So anyways, I stopped to chill with him. We were not on drugs. which is probably why I got arrested at the time.
Sure.
And so, you know, we went to, on a Friday night, I decided I was going to stay in Phoenix for a while. We went to Bash's, the local grocery store in Phoenix, and we bought ourselves a bunch of groceries. But on the way through, in about aisle 3, there was the Eckrich salami. The Eckrich salamis, you know, they look like a deck of cards, you know, like there's like pepperoni size. Spencer said, you know, let's get this. I'm like, no, dude, it's a fucking rancid. He goes, no, let's get it. So he pulls it off the shelf, you know, we're 23 years old and denim and scraggly beards and big afros, the whole deal. And shit, man. So he opens it up and gives me a piece and takes a piece. And we eat it. I'm like, dude, see? He's like, this shit sucks. I'm like, exactly.
Wait, so you're eating it in the store?
Yeah, we ate it in the store. Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
Aisle 3.
In aisle 3.
Exactly.
All right.
Yeah, in aisle 3.
Yeah.
That's a good pickup, though, Sam. That's exactly. That's part of the story for sure. Is that it got eaten in the store. In the store.
So technically, you didn't really.
We threw the bag back on the shelf.
Wait, is it really stealing it if it never leaves the store? If you eat it in the store, was this a technicality?
This is why the eventual plea was no contest, Sam. Exactly. So what ends up happening? What ends up happening in aisle 12? That was the last aisle where the frozen shit was, and that's where I actually learned about nitrous oxide and Reddi-wip. But that's a whole nother story too.
Same
we learned about it right then.
Same store, same night.
Same store, same night, bro.
You learned about nitrous oxide and Reddi-wip, and
that's right.
You ate salami in aisle 3.
That's right. Well, we weren't even done. That was it. It was 6 o'clock. It was 5. It was actually 5:55 p.m. Phoenix.
Were you guys being scoped by the store clerk at this point?
You're going to have to listen to a little bit more of the story. We'll see how this goes.
Go on.
So I don't know right now, but let's see how the story goes. And I think there is a clerk involved coming up soon. And so we get to the desk and we're just ready to check out. We're just having fun. I'm 23. He's actually 22, and we're just chilling, you know. So we get there and $156 of groceries. I pay with my American Express traveler's checks because I wouldn't leave home without them. You know how that goes. And we step out the door. Bam, bam. Woo, we got handcuffs on us. And it's like, well, I'll be a son of a bitch. You got the right to remain silent. You did me the Miranda. I'll be a son of a bitch.
Wait, you paid $156 in groceries, and they still arrested you for a salami that you ate in aisle 3?
Sam, you're walking ahead. This is part of the deal.
All right.
You're going to make this give you the 12 or 18-minute version if you keep butting in. I've told the story enough that I'm just saying. So the next thing is we're upstairs with the security dude with a plastic leather jacket. And he's like, Spencer, the reason he's dead is because he's a fucking hothead. And so that's why he's dead too. He was hothead then. He's like screaming at this dude. He's like, what's the deal? The guy pulls out into his pocket and throws down this open plastic container of fucking salami. He goes, you guys recognize this? Well, yeah, but
that was dinner. That rancid shit from aisle 3.
Yeah, I recognize it. He goes, you're under arrest for petty theft. I'm like, you got to be out of your crazy mind. So he calls his wife. We got one, you know. And then he starts, we're going to be a little late tonight, honey. I think it's like commission or something. Quota probably. And so before too long, the Phoenix City police were there, then the Maricopa County police were there, then the state of Arizona police were there. This thing got big. There were 6 of them.
No.
Why did it get big?
Came for a salami.
Why? I'm about to tell you why they came.
All right.
Sam.
Here's the big reveal.
Is because I didn't have an address. And that's what I told them.
Oh, you were a nomadic salami stealer.
I was a vagabond. Indeed.
Vagabond. That's the most dangerous kind of salami stealer.
I was what they call a vagrant.
Uh-huh.
So they didn't like that. Now, it was before terrorism. It was just, I think they had just maybe hijacked a few planes by that year, but it wasn't like shit was going down internationally very much. But, they were worried about me. I'm like, here's $1.23 for this fucking salami. Can we get going? You got the wrong pair of guys. Leave us alone. We're not even high. And we weren't. That's what I'm saying. Had we been, we would have probably not got fucking arrested. But they let Spencer go home, and they put me in the Maricopa County Jail for the night.
Did you take out one of the Ready Whip cans?
No, I didn't. But I'll tell you, I could have. I wanted to, because I sat in that holding cell, Sam. It was the size of this room. It's like a 12 by 10 with one open toilet and 3 benches. And while I was there, the weekenders came in. The people who had embezzled, the white collar criminals, they come in and they just do 2 days. They came in while I was in that holding tank waiting for my pass to go to the big house. And instead, the white collar criminals, the ones who still have a job to hold down for the economy, they were allowed to come in for 2 days and serve their time and then go back home at Sunday night and start their work again. And so we had to book all of them while I was waiting there. So in the meantime, you can guess that Maricopa County Jail fills with some fucking thugs, bro. There's some thugs that got put into that holding tank. Like 50 of them.
I love that you got put in a holding tank for stealing rancid salami and not even bringing it out of the damn store, leaving it in the aisle. That is incredible.
Right. And they could have got me for Ready Whip. That would have made that'd be a better story, but that isn't what they got me for. Instead, there I was, the Group W bench. I got that Group W bench. I mean, there I was, and I couldn't move, Sam. The guy next to me had his head on my shoulder, 440 pounds.
Oh, my God.
And I couldn't move. Now, certainly, I was the third guy in the holding tank. There was my friend Sam, who I met. His name was Sam, actually. And I met him in the paddy wagon. He's like, first time in the clink? I'm like, yeah. There's no bad thing there. They got 3 hots and a cot. I'm like,
What are you in for? Eating salami?
Exactly. This is not something you want to brag about. It's not something you want to brag about in the big house. So once I got moved, look, later in the night after my shoulder, I still have fucking shoulder injury, crush injury. I've told you about that. I think it's actually from that night, come to think of it. And I think it is, actually. I'm going to have to research that. And wow. Then I was in the big house and, I had bought a pack of cigarettes, so I had some bartering tools. You know what I'm talking about there, don't you? I mean, really, you got to have bartering tools. I had 40 Bitcoins. They were called Marlboro Reds at the time. And I used them properly. And they're like, what are you in here for? So the best I could do was say petty theft. At least that got me in. I didn't have to tell. I didn't have to tell my
cigarette away to everyone who asked you what you're in there for, so that you didn't have to actually tell them what you're in there for.
Exactly right. It's exactly right. And there was a lot of things that happened that night. A lot of things that this white guy from northern United States being down there with the man. I saw some hammerlocks go to broken collarbones. I saw many of those. I heard many of those. That was not that great a night. And in the morning, I ran into Judge Berger. But seriously, there's plenty of stories of what happened in the big house, but we're going to move along. And Judge Berger, he's part of the tribe. We both saw each other. We're like, dude. He said, dude. He's like underneath his monocle. He's like, what? I'm like, and he starts reading my 7 pages of my offense. And he looks up just like they did in Alice's restaurant. He looks up and he says, so it says here, Fred, what do you plead? I was already no contest, It says here you stole some salami. Like, yep.
Yeah.
That's one way to look at it.
You take it to trial, get a whole jury going, plead the fifth.
And he was, shaking his head. He was shaking his head. He's because, the guy before me had pissed in a phone booth, and that got him some offense. And then the guy before that had beaten up his wife again. This big Indian dude, got to get out of Maricopa. So Berger had a tough morning that Saturday morning. And there I was, just really flipping him out. And eventually he gave me my, charged me $56.
That was the most expensive rancid salami you've ever eaten.
Yeah. Yeah. I asked him then I asked him, right, you know what I asked him? I'll end the story with this, but I did have a question. I asked him, do you guys accept American Express checks? Because that's all I had.
Is that a thing? Can the court take traveler's checks?
Yeah, they could. They did that night. I'd still be there, Sam. Shit.
Oh,
thank God.
My God.
So anyways, I digress just a little, but thanks for the arrest in Phoenix. I knew I had to search long and hard to bring a story that was even close to as entertaining as both of yours. Golly. Thank you. So Sam, do you think we should go back to Phoenix here? Because I feel like, I don't want to go back to, by the way, you know what Berger told me? He said, don't come back to Phoenix ever.
Yeah, keep your fucking
he said,
dirt.
I could throw you in jail. If you come back here and you get an offense in Phoenix or in Arizona in any time in any place, you're getting a minimum of a year. I'm like,
get your dirty salami
I got you.
Fingers out of this goddamn
get
state.
Your
salami, don't come back.
Slimy fucking salami. That's right. Anyways, it's not the solitary confinement in a prison in LA, though, is it? We're not talking that. It's not quite that. It has a little bit of levity, but it sounds like in you and your really self-developed ecstatic dance while you're going through your psychotic inward-outward break in the second month of a solitary that you absolutely were served up to by the industry itself, totally responsible for taking you from the side of a quad-billion-dollar plane to a janitor to now sitting there as a felonious offender about to have his life expired. You show up with ecstatic dance only to have it confirmed sometime later, and it becomes your love and life into the delivery of now only 6 years ago, through this thing that happened 3 years ago. Who are you today, Phoenix Thunderbird?
Well, now I am the founder of a nonprofit. We call it Tribal Lights, and currently we're creating a documentary film that is documenting the process of creating a regenerative city with tribal nations. We call it a Tribal Lights Institute. So a lot like Esalen Institute, but with a lot more emphasis on utilizing plant medicine to help in the awakening process with certified healers and coaches and therapists. It's always been that big vision of the highest version of myself. I would see this community, this holistic community of not only a retreatment center, but also there would be a university, and there would be kids' school, and there would be regenerative farming, and hemp would be used to create different kinds of products. And so I finally just decided I'm just going to ground it in. And we created the business plan, the pitch deck, the pro forma, everything that's needed to start a business. And through the process of enrolling board members to join our nonprofit, we've met some really key people because for me, like, I'm not that expert. I'm not the expert hemp farmer. I'm not the regenerative agriculture or architecture or infrastructure. You know, there's people out there that have started accredited universities and now they're on our team, right? We have this really amazing team. And one of the gentlemen, he was just appointed by the United Nations as the advisory commissioner for all tribal nations in the United States. And he has the same birthday as me, August 17th, the day of explosive power. I come to find out from
What
him.
is it? What date is it?
August 17th. Apparently, if you look it up in the birthday book, it's the day of explosive power. And the guy that introduced me to him also has the same birthday. And so,
All three of you?
yeah, all three of us. And so this guy, he's introducing us to 37 tribal nations next month. And we have this beautiful presentation that outlines the entire vision. And it's all set up with, I mean, we've thought the process through very deeply, and we've established these really clear bylaws and have created a system where chapters can start, they would be autonomous. Like, we really thought through the whole process. And I'm really hoping that this documentary is going to inspire viewers to support not only this first chapter to be built, but then to empower them to start their own chapter. And this could be something that really lives on and helps a lot of people by, you know, using the same things that have helped me and so many other people. So that's what we're currently working on.
Is there a connection between, boy, it's a delicate, please give me a second. It's a very delicate question. Is there a connection between your experience in your self-proclaimed psychotic break, where you declared earlier that everyone on the planet wanted you to kill yourself because you didn't love yourself enough, and that was entirely clear to you? Like, that is almost, to me, the absolute sort of mirror image negative X of who you now have become. That they're related images, but just in the opposite polarity. That you could be so causative of the end of the world that you indeed could switch it around and then be causative of the salvation of the world.
Right. Or the awakening of humanity.
The awakening of humanity. And isn't that the movie, or what's the movie? Tell us about this movie.
So we're calling it Tribal Lights, Waking Up from the American Dream. So I have a movie trailer, and I wrote this spoken word that is used as like a bit of a concept. So I can just share that really quickly. It's kind of like a recap of my story and the vision altogether. It goes isolation, addiction, institution, imprison, psychosis, and forced treatments keep numbing with new pill combinations to the obese nation. Separation, it's an ego sensation in strip clubs and bars, status, power, fame, and fancy new cars. Just stay asleep. Ignore the screams from the factory monocropped animal farms, and never mind as the homeless suicide rates rise. Just keep watching the programs that program you to stay asleep or wake up from this American dream through healthy eating, work trade living, hemp technology, biodynamic farming, holistically integrating psychedelic healing, arts, schools, and centers that nurture elders and children's futures. Imagine with me intentional communities outside every polluted city, nature sanctuaries for all who answer the call to wake up and join us. So that's like what we plan on doing in the documentary is taking 5 to 8 people through a pilot program of the institute by showing the transformation live, the before, the during, the after, so that people can see the power of these different plant medicines like ibogaine, something that, you know, not many people know about, but has like a 90 to 95% success rate at curing heroin addiction, along with meth addiction. And one of the members on our board has been working with the medicine for 18 years. He's excited to train Native American healers how to offer the medicine. And then there would be the second storyline of Sequoia and I, my beloved, us interviewing the leading experts, the people that will be on our team, in order to show who's involved and what's involved, and just painting that picture of what that future institute could look like. So yeah, it's I think the best way to reach the most people is to tell a vision, right? Through that spotlight, so that more people can find out about what we're doing. And we'll have an opportunity zone investment fund in place for larger investors to join, and we'll be writing lots of grants through that process. And there's some other technology through tokenization and that sort of stuff that we're exploring. So there'll be a lot that we try to cover in the film.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
I was just thinking about the tokenization model, and I was actually going to ask about that, if that was a model that you're considering in terms of investing.
It is, yeah. There's some different people out there. We're just being really cautious because there's some people that want to take advantage of the Native American people still, believe it or not.
Bad actors, a lot of bad actors for sure.
Yeah. So we're being really cautious. There's a really great one that I think called Seeds, which they have a whole algorithm in place that basically rewards people for contributing to regenerative projects, which ours would be one of. But I'm really not the best person to talk to about this. I'm still kind of new to everything in that field.
Yeah. So is the idea ultimately that this becomes a scalable system that can be modeled and repeated anywhere in the world? Is that the idea?
Exactly. Yeah, by setting it up as a nonprofit. This is like the
prototype for something entirely new.
Exactly. Yeah, I think all these things exist in separate places. You know, you have regenerative farms, and you have hemp farms, and you have plant medicine clinics, and you have healing arts universities, and you have green school, you know, like Waldorf. You have remote working, like co-working spaces. That's another aspect we want to have on site, just to really foster innovation and to bring that remote workforce to us. And also doing festivals, like we want to have an annual, big music festival, to just build support and awareness there. So just bringing all those things together. And there would be a big hospitality component. We plan on building a big RV park, because RV and like van life, all these things are really trending right now, along with earth ships. So there's a big agro-tourism movement. All the trends are pointing in this direction, especially with plant medicine. And working with tribes, it gives us the ability to move forward a lot sooner, because they are sovereign, and there's a lot of different benefits, financially and zoning wise. Like if we were to try to
you don't have to worry about the legal.
Exactly. If we were to try to do this in the United States,
you don't have to worry about the legal parts of the psychedelic use. You could use under
the zoning too.
Yeah. Okay, got it. That makes sense. Yeah.
Like Osho, the whole commune that got started out there, the reason they got shut down was because of zoning. So, we don't have to deal with any of that.
Right. And so there would be a permanent population in these communities. And then people would come and go, sort of like there's sort of like a retreat kind of experience for people coming to the community and having an experience of it, but not being part of it. Is that the idea?
I would say it would be a permanent workforce community. So the people that worked there would be more permanent residents, and then it would be more of the hospitality, tourism, retreat center type of income there.
Yeah, I see.
Yeah, they're really excited about it because they want to really get away from the whole casino model, because it's just not good on so many levels, and they really want to switch to this more of the resort type of model, because they have so many healers in their community that just want to have a purposeful, meaningful work. You know, right now they're working at casinos and gas stations, and it's just their suicide rates are higher than veteran rates. You know, all the rates, drug use, diabetes, all these things are really high in their community. So I feel
now,
like.
Do you have any Native American heritage as well?
You know, I grew up in Phoenix, and I had a lot of different Native friends, and I don't know if I do or not. My brother always told me I was adopted. So there's a chance. But
I could see his point.
He was a dick.
I see that too.
No, I don't.
Yeah, I could see both sides of that one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Phoenix, what does Phoenix mean? What does it mean to you?
Just the transformation. You know, I think I shared with you where the name came from initially, and I grew up in Phoenix, and I couldn't call myself that initially because I was like, you know, I can't name myself after the city I grew up in, and I didn't actually take it on until I left on this healing journey. But it was given to me by, I believe, the spirit of ayahuasca, or it was my subconscious directly after that ceremony, because it just showed me in a very clear vision, like I said before, my entire life just flashed before my eyes while the spirit basically burned my face on the side of a fire pit. And within that pain, it was at first very painful, but then the pain became like this ecstatic bliss, like an explosion. And I saw that the pain and the pleasure was the exact same thing, like two sides to the same coin. And within that is how I saw the whole spectrum of my life. And then later that evening, the name Phoenix Thunderbird was given to me by this voice. So I think it is interesting too. I'll just stop there. There's more to it. It's kind of a long story. You guys are so much more funny than I am. I'm so serious with everything.
Well, we know how to be funny, but we really have overused our allotment of funny in this conversation. So if you want more funny from us, you're going to have to tune in to the next episode. This is getting a little down and dirty.
It is. It's 11:11 though, so we're good timing.
Well, I got to love that. And not only that, wasn't today something about, it is 11:11. It's quite beautiful that it is. Thank you. And I was curious. I was going to ask you this. So thanks for bringing it to my attention. You know, we had this incredible lunar eclipse today.
Mm-hmm.
What the hell? What is this thing today? What happened? That happened this morning, indeed.
Wow.
A full moon, the biggest moon of the year, lunar eclipse this morning.
Why doesn't anyone notify me of these things?
Dude, I tried to call you, but you just like, leave me alone, dude. I'm sleeping.
What was that 4 a.m? So
I was probably still. I know.
It was 4 a.m.
Yeah.
I had just fallen asleep a couple hours earlier.
I know that's true, actually. Anyways, a story for the next episode again is that. But what is the story with the moon, Phoenix? What should we know here?
That's like more of a question for my partner. She's more into that astrology stuff.
Sequoia, yeah?
Yeah.
Did she get her name? Did she get her name in a similar fashion, or was she actually born Sequoia?
No, it's similar way. It was
Mhm.
it was still kind of serendipitous though how it came to her. So,
Mhm.
yeah.
That's terrific.
Yeah. You guys don't have like chosen names yet?
I do have a name from Mankind Project. My name is Heart of a Lion. That's my name.
Very good.
Oh.
And you, Sam?
It's heart of a one word.
In Phoenix, it is.
Heart of a.
In
lion.
Phoenix, it is. Yeah, yeah.
Heart of a. HARTAVA. Heart of a lion.
Yeah. You got yourself an animal name?
Dr. Heart of a Lion.
Yeah. Are you sporting an animal name there, Sam? Did you ever pick one up somewhere?
I haven't. My friends in high school used to call me Sasquatch because I was really hairy. I had this big. I had this beard. I was in my first attempt at a beard for the first several years that I could grow facial hair. It all grew just like pubic hairs, but it grew like Amish pubic hairs. No mustache.
Amish pubic hair.
The mustache wouldn't grow.
You're not allowed to put those two words together.
Amish pubic. I seriously.
You're not allowed to do that, bro. That's not acceptable.
No.
Seriously,
so
my mustache wouldn't even grow in, and it just grew like these nasty pubes, and they're all untrimmed. I didn't know you were supposed to trim a beard. The texture was all like sort of wiry, and I don't know. I mean, it's a good thing for marijuana because I think if there certainly wouldn't have been any women in my life, that's for sure. So it was. I mean,
the women came to you for the marijuana, you mean?
No, I'm saying like getting high became like a substitute for being attractive and having experiences with women because, and I never really knew why.
Start the meter, bro. I never really meter on this.
I never put it together why more women weren't in my life. But I look at pictures of myself back then and I'm like, I had like 4 or 5 inches of pubes, Amish pubes coming from my chin. No wonder women didn't want to have anything to do with me.
Some beautiful women probably found that attractive.
The same ones who have like the really gnarly hairy armpits and yeah, totally. I've just insulted
you had another
like
name you told me about yesterday, something like, Aren't you also Doob or something? Don't you also have that name?
Yeah, one of my closest friends calls me
Sasquatch and Doob.
Doob, yeah. I had a number of nicknames. Swami, that was another nickname. I had the nickname Swami long before I knew what a Swami even was. That was strange. I only found out years later what a Swami was. People had been calling me Swami for years. Swami,
so
Doob,
we got Swami, Sasquatch, Doob.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's like a gangster name, man.
Swami,
like you should trip those
Sasquatch,
things
Doob.
up together.
I never really thought of putting the three together.
That's like a rapper's name.
Swami Sasquatch Doob.
There you go. Sasquatch Swami Doob.
Fuck.
Oh boy, you pick up that one. That's better than Baby Le Freak or Phoenix Thunderbird. You should roll that one out.
I was going to ask. I almost this is just going to be a really bad joke, but I was going to when we were talking about your brother that you don't like so much. I was going to ask you if his name was Pontiac Firebird.
Oh, that is funny.
Because those are kind of shitty cars, right?
That is really funny, actually. No, that is solid shit, man. That is really good. That's good, man. That is really good at so many levels.
Oh, they my kids.
I'm glad you could get that.
Thank God it's 11:15.
Thank you for validating my horrible joke. I appreciate it.
It's my job. It's my job, Sam. It's my job. Even you blow shit off on this show, and I'm still going to make it look good. That's why they pay me the big money, Sam. Fuck.
Oh shit.
All right. So, anyways, it's glad it's 11:15 because the kids have gone to sleep and they don't have to listen to this dribble. That's kind of good. God. Oh my God. Sasquatch. Swami Doob. Wow. Wow. Let me ask you a question, Phoenix. If you're, let's say you're in cell block B, up on the second floor, and a dude moves in next to you, arrested for petty theft, and his name that you hear, his hood name, is Swami Sasquatch Doob. Are you afraid? Are you wondering? You want to meet him? Are you like, stay away from that motherfucker? What do you tell me where you are on something like that? I'm just guessing. What happens in a prison when a dude like that shows up next to you?
I'm probably wondering if he's like hiding his real charges. He's probably some kind of child molester or something.
There you go. That's how that goes. And that's how that goes. Jeez. He's got a good ass story and a good ass name, but that mofo's done some shameful shit. You better be sure if he's gonna walk in with a name like that, he's overcovering himself.
God, yes. This guy was found having an orgy, like a tantric orgy in a dumpster.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, someone discovered Swami Sasquatch Doob having a tantric orgy in a dumpster behind KFC.
And you know what was in that dumpster? That open sack of salami was in that dumpster, bro. Let me tell you that. And how do I know? Because I've been there. God damn it.
Yeah.
That's it.
And the banana guy was hanging out too.
Yeah, the banana guy, Pepe Le Freak.
Pepe Le Freak.
You know, Le Freak. Is it Le Freak or Le Freak?
Le Freak. Le Freak. Le Freak.
F-R-E-A-K?
Yeah, F-R-E-A-K. L-E-F-R-E-A-K. Le Freak.
2 words.
B.B. Le Freak. Yeah. All it took was
the L and the F would both be capitalized.
All it took was a single psychedelic experience for this guy to decide to change his name permanently to B.B. Le Freak.
You know, the first time I did mescaline, I changed my name permanently.
Oh, yeah? What did it become? Hardova?
Thanks for saving me, bro, because I was at a loss there. That's what we do for each other. See what I'm saying, Phoenix? You see why we got together to do this show? Because we can do that for each other. I can pull him out of the dumpster, and he can pull me out of the dumpster. And that's how that goes. That's why we're a good pair, and that's why you're lucky enough to be our first guest. So, really, the fortune is ours to be with you in reality. Quite extraordinary. How do we get to know you more? How do we hang with you? How do we follow you? Obviously the three of us can hang now, that we know each other. But what if our listeners or viewers are interested in catching up with you or being with you or learning about what you do? Where would they find you?
I have my own personal website, so just phoenixthunderbird.com. I kind of post my different music offerings. I also like to facilitate contact improv with ecstatic dance. We do fundraisers out here in LA. We just did one last week, called it Bass Force. So we brought in yoga and breath work and meditation. I did an ecstatic dance set. We had a DJ, brought a big sound system out to Dockweiler Beach. So we might do that again soon. Triballights.org with 1 L. That's the way to add yourself to the newsletter and get updates on these types of events. And then the film that hopefully should come out in the next year or so, if everything goes right. So
I have to speak to this because I think our listeners are going to want this question, or our viewers, and that is, you're looking for people to walk through with you. There's some people that like, they're like, what are you calling those people, and who are you looking for, or are they already picked out?
As far as people that would work at the Future institute, or people that would want
You
to?
mentioned it was like you were going to walk some people through the program. Was that
Okay.
people who were going to work or people who were going to, I didn't understand exactly if that was like ex-felons or
Yeah.
ex-salami
So
stealers or.
I would hope to get like a wide range of different people with different backgrounds so that we can, just show the transformation. So it wouldn't just be like all people suffering from heroin addiction, but there would be, one or two. And then, somebody that's going through like an existential crisis with work and like no meaning or purpose in life, but suffering from serious depression. We're kind of leaving that up to the casting director to find these people. So we'll probably take in a lot of applicants and then, do some vetting there and pick, 5 to 8 different people and really focus in on like probably 3 to 4. But this is like kind of out of my hands. I'm not really the one that's making all the decisions with the film. We're hiring an agency that understands how to direct these things and produce them. I'm really grateful for that too, because I have no experience with film production. So yeah, we're looking for investors though for that.
Part of your brilliance is your ability to know where you aren't the guy. I don't know if you've known that, but you've kind of pushed it off on Sequoia at one point, on that person, another point, another, thank goodness for the people that are around you who are doing that which you don't hold yourself to be proficient or the best optimized soul doing the job. So there's something really magical about how you sort of stop yourself and then still create the manifested beautiful person to get the job done next to you inside of your being. I really appreciate that about you a lot. So thank you.
Thank you.
Sam.
That was incredible, Phoenix. I mean, you're just such an inspiring soul, and I appreciate you just being totally fine with us flying all over the place, deep into your pain and struggle, and also being light and humorous and just going with the flow with us tonight. And you've really inspired the shit out of me. Like I said earlier, this is truly, I see, you're emblematic of the mission from God type of human being who has been through that, religious level of pain and suffering only to turn it around. I mean, this is biblical shit that you've been through. This is the next chapter in the Bible is Phoenix Thunderbird's chapter. And I just really am excited to follow your progress. And I'm really encouraging all our viewers and listeners to follow your work and to reach out to you and see how they can help and, invest in this project, because this is really important stuff that you're doing. This is truly a divine purpose.
Thank you both so much. I've never received that amount of praise before from anybody. And it feels really great to be acknowledged like that. So thank you so much for supporting and for seeing me. And I'm blown away by the reflection. So I must be doing something right.
You are definitely doing something right. Definitely. Well,
my partner would beat me up if I didn't mention that we also do our Instagram together. So it's Phoenix and Sequoia. And like you said, I like to push off the things I'm not good at. So Instagram is that. I do not touch the Instagram. So it's Phoenix and Sequoia. If you're looking,
Phoenix and Sequoia, all spelled out.
Yep. Yeah. For the Instagram handle.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And you can find Fred at Heart of a HRATAVA. It's different from Havarti.
No. That's getting too close. You're getting too close to the Mabado, but I'm sure that thing will make it here soon, but not tonight.
Shit.
Mabado and Heart of are related. Just saying. Anyways, that's it for tonight. I say let's bid each other farewell. Phoenix Thunderbird, thank you for being you're so spectacular. What a great guest, letting us build the foundation around you and be with you and discover you. And really get you to express, indeed, all funny things aside, the divinity of your work and who you have become and who you are every single breath you take and who you are for everyone who meets you. It's just been a deep pleasure. Thank you. And Sam, thanks.
Hey, what a rockin' first episode of Insanity.
Yeah.
Perfect guest.
Anything you want to say, Phoenix? Anything else? Because it's time to.
No, that's it. Thank you both so much. I really appreciate the time. Thank you.
You're welcome. Good night, and thanks again. Pajama Jammin' Sam. Good night.
All right. Take care, everyone.